Welcome to Alien to Me. So today it's going to be a little bit different than the last episode. I have a script written by my dear researcher, Jeff. Hello, Jeff. I will be cold reading this, but this is my second take. I really hope that I come up with better jokes or just better commentary or questions on it. For now, let's get into the Pascagoula Abduction. Introduction. October 11th, 1973, Pascagoula, Mississippi. It was about 8 p.m. when Deputy Glenn Ryder, we got good names starting off here. We're starting off with some really excellent names. When Deputy Glenn Ryder picked up the phone. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department was no stranger to phone calls about UFOs. UFO sightings were making national headlines that fall, and the Magnolia State was no exception. But this call was different. I've got to tell you something, but you're gonna laugh at me. Ryder reassured the caller that he wouldn't. On the other end of the line was Charles Hickson, a 42-year-old shipyard worker and Korean War veteran. Me and a friend of mine just got picked up by a UFO. Ryder laughed anyway. In the background, his friend, 18-year-old Calvin Parker, could be heard panicking. "Don't tell him nothing. They'll kill us if we tell. Hang up the phone." Ryder agreed to meet them at Hickson's apartment. There, he was greeted by his wife, a tiny woman wearing glasses too big for her face. Inside, Parker looked like he had seen a ghost. Hickson was sweating profusely, the smell of alcohol lingering on his breath. Ryder convinced the pair to come down to the police station, where they were grilled for several hours. By the time they were released in the early hours of the morning, Ryder wasn't laughing anymore. Within 48 hours, their story made headlines worldwide, turning Hickson and Parker into the biggest UFO celebrities since Betty and Barney Hill. More than half a century later, the Pascagoula Abduction is still held up by many as one of the most credible accounts of alien encounters ever recorded. Two seemingly believable witnesses who went through a life-changing event, but walked away with two completely different experiences and reactions. No clear motive, no reason to lie. That's the sales pitch you'll hear from the UFO community. But the reality is a bit more complicated than that. Like many famous UFO cases, it's a compelling story full of twists and turns, and just as many red flags that tend to get brushed aside by those who have something to gain by keeping the mystery alive. This is the story of Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. The Bound of the River. I love this Simon Whistler style script. This is incredible. I get chapters. I get chapter titles to read. Calvin Ray Parker Jr. was born on November 2nd, 1954, in Seminole, Texas. He was described as an adventurous boy who hated school and never missed church. At the age of 10, Parker and his family moved to Sandersville, a small town in Jones County, Mississippi, where he met the man his name would forever be tied to, Charles Hickson. Born on April 16, 1931, in the heart of Jones County, Charles Edward Hickson was a simple, down-to-earth family man who enjoyed fishing and hunting, and was also known for being fond of the bottle and really bad with money. Still, he was respected and well-liked by those who knew him. Hickson was a constable at the time. He became close friends with Parker's father over their love of fishing. Over time, their families became almost inseparable, often sharing meals, attending church together, and going on camping trips. On one of these trips, while Hickson and the Parker boys were fishing on the Pearl River, Parker slipped and fell into the water. Without thinking, Hickson immediately jumped in and pulled him out to safety. Unbeknownst to them, this wouldn't be their last bad fishing trip. Around 1969, Hickson got a job at a door manufacturing company in Laurel, about 10 miles from Sandersville. One day, he stopped by Parker's house to let them know the company was shutting down and he'd need to find a new job. About 2 weeks later, Hickson and his family moved to Pascagoula, where he found work at Ingalls Shipyards. Despite the move, the family stayed close, and Parker, along with his brother and father, often made trips to the coast to fish with Hickson. During these trips, Hickson and Parker got to know each other better and formed a close bond. Hickson would sometimes open up about the horrors he'd witnessed during his time in Korea, but just as quickly he'd shut down completely and become distant. Parker later recalled, "There were times I didn't know how to take him. He would have his own way pissing me off, and then other times I thought the world of him. But family's the same way." On November 20th, 1972, Hickson's time at Ingalls shipyards came to an end. He was fired for quote-unquote conduct unbecoming a supervisor and quote-unquote embezzling company funds. In other words, he borrowed money from people working under him and paid them back by trying to get them promotions. Oof. I still want to know more about his constable days and what happened there. How did he go from being a constable to getting fired from a shipyard? What happened there? Fast forward to late September 1973. Parker was miserable. He was engaged to his girlfriend, Waynette, but was still living with his parents. His job at Wansley Machine and Welding was incredibly demanding, and the constant stress of being on call 24/7 was starting to take a toll on him. He wanted out, badly. So he turned to his old friend. Hickson had problems of his own. He was drowning in debt and had just filed for bankruptcy. Times were tough, yet he was able to pull a few strings and secure Parker a welding job at F.B. Walker & Sons, the shipyard where he worked as a foreman. He even sweetened the deal and offered Parker a spare room in the 3-bedroom apartment he shared with his wife and newborn daughter in Gautier, just west of Pascagoula, for $50 a week. The arrangement was far from ideal for Parker. The pay wasn't as good, and he'd only get to see his fiancée on the weekends, but Parker accepted the offer anyway. He drove home that night and handed in his 2-week notice the next day. He moved to Gautier and began working alongside Hickson on October 3rd, just 8 days before the incident that would change their lives. According to both men, Thursday, October 11th started like any other day, except it was unusually hot for the time of year, and the mosquitoes were particularly vicious. During lunch, Hickson suggested to Parker that they go fishing after work. Parker wasn't sold, not wanting to spend more time outside with the mosquitoes, and because he didn't have his fishing gear. Hickson brushed off Parker's complaints and assured him that he had plenty of bug repellent and extra fishing gear that Parker could borrow. But Parker was reluctant because it broke some Southern boy code. Quote, "Using someone else's fishing tackle is like using someone else's wife. It was something you just didn't do," end quote. I don't think those are the same thing. So I mean, if we're using fishing tackle as like a metaphor for other kinds of tackle, maybe. Otherwise, yeah, it is not the same as using someone's wife. Even a little bit. It's just some line, hooks, and lures, guys. It kind of says a lot about the South at that time, huh? After a little more convincing from Hickson, the two finally agreed to spend the evening fishing on the Pascagoula River just off Highway 90. They grabbed their fishing gear and left the apartment around 5:45 p.m. in Parker's yellow 73 Rambler Hornet. Hell yeah. Dope. Good job, Parker. According to Parker, they made a quick stop at a Magic Mart. Every single name in this is great. Like, besides literally Hickson and Parker, every name that I remember from the first draft is incredible. A Magic Mart? See, here, close to Ann Arbor, that would sell mushrooms. But I think it was just alcohol and probably a few groceries. Where Hickson picked up a bottle of Jim Beam whiskey in case of emergency and a 6-pack of beer, which he quickly downed. On the way to the river, they passed a broken down car with a man yelling at his wife and cussing her out. I drove by that the day I'm recording this as well. That was fun. Deeply upset by the scene, Parker wanted to stop and beat the shit out of that guy, but Hickson talked him down and told him just to let it go. You really should have, knowing what comes next, you really should have gone back and beaten the shit out of that guy. I think it would have been a much better use of your time. And you wouldn't then be scarred for life. It would just be like regular fight PTSD, not like taken up in an alien spaceship PTSD. Oh well. Once they arrived at the old abandoned Peters shipyard, not too far from Huntington Ingalls Industries, which was at the time the largest military shipbuilder in the country, they parked about 100 yards from the waterfront. The place was a dumping ground for locals, leaving no room to park near the water's edge. It was eerily quiet, with only the distant hum of traffic from the highway about 300 yards away and the toll bridge visible in the distance. The pier was in terrible condition, barely looking sturdy enough to support the two of them, with holes and rusty nails sticking out of it. It probably looked like a level straight out of Mortal Kombat. Nice. They found some old timber to sit on and started fishing as night fell. Can you imagine how terrible that water is? Don't eat the fish out of there. Maybe this was all a hallucination and they actually got fish out of that river and then ate that fish and then went on like a fucking wild trip because of all the pollution in the river. Can you imagine? Magic Mart doesn't sell mushrooms. It sells river water. It would be the worst trip of your entire life. Anyway, after a while, Parker started getting irritated with Hickson, who'd been complaining nonstop about his wife and his oldest daughter's dating life since they got there. With no fish biting, Parker suggested they try a different spot Hickson had mentioned earlier during the drive. An old grain elevator nearby, where spilled grain often attracted good-sized fish. That's actually really smart. Hickson insisted they give it a couple more minutes. This feels like sunk cost fallacy. Just move. Again. You would have just gotten, like, bored from not catching fish and maybe tetanus from a rusty nail instead of probed on an alien ship. Come on, dudes. They caught a few hardhead catfish but released them, as the two men felt they weren't tasty and were a pain in the ass to clean. Can confirm, catfish suck. Not as, like, companions in a tank. They're kind of cool. They have personalities. It's great. But they're just bones. Bones and, like, their hard skin. Go to the other place where the grain is. Go back and find that guy and beat him up. Later, Parker heard a car pulling away and turned to look over his shoulder. It was a red Pontiac they'd seen earlier on the way in. He was struck by the car's unusual license plate, which had a weird red glow spinning around it. And I don't think LEDs existed at that time. I really, really hope, Jeff, because my biggest question was about this car. And I really hope that later on we get more about this car and what happened, because I am so curious about what the hell. I'm really sad that either he doesn't remember or it was never written down what that license plate actually was, because, like, our technology is great. I use that license plate lookup thing all the time for very different reasons, but it's good technology, y'all. A strange, uneasy feeling crept over Parker. Something wasn't right. Hickson, oblivious to the shift in the air, was now telling Parker about the legend of the Singing River, in which the Pascagoula Native American tribe, outnumbered and facing enslavement by their arch enemies, the Biloxi tribe, chose death instead. According to the legend, they joined hands, chanting, and walked into the river until their voices gradually faded into the dark waters. Before Hickson could finish the story, Parker felt a chill run down his spine. He noticed a blue, hazy light reflecting off the water. He looked over his shoulder once more and saw what he first thought was a police car about 70 feet away. Hickson, reaching for some bait, heard a strange hissing sound, turned and saw it too. It quickly became clear it was not a police car. Little did they know, they weren't the only ones out there trying to catch something that night. Ooh, love that. Oh, excellent writing. Oh my gosh. The foreshadowing. The fish metaphor. So good. The football-shaped object was hovering about 2 feet off the ground. It was about 8 feet tall and 30 feet long, with one end tapering to a point. It had 2 round windows and a small dome-like structure on top. Hickson threw his pole down and nearly fell into the river as he tried to stand up, but Parker quickly pulled him back onto the pier. Hickson was both freaked out and fascinated by the strange craft. Part of him wanted to bolt for the car, but at the same time, he couldn't help but want to see what was inside. Parker felt his entire body seize up, paralyzed by sharp cramps as a soft, low hum echoed around them. Infrasound? Perhaps? Every time the sound went off, his muscles clenched harder. So yeah, it could be infrasound. He thought about running for the car to get his gun from under the seat, but the craft was in his way, and there was nowhere to go. He glanced around looking for an escape, but all he saw was water and trash. It was too late. A door opened, releasing a blinding light so intense he later compared it to staring directly into a welding arc. Or into an episode of Forged in Fire. Am I right? Hopefully my husband who's listening to this. The camera always focuses on the welding every time they have to do it. And it's like, we know what welding is. You didn't have to focus the entire camera on all of that light. Because you know what? It still hurts through a camera. It still sucks. Anyway. You're welcome, two people that know what I'm talking about. Parker glanced at Hickson. The seasoned war vet with 5 battle stars, the bravest, toughest man he knew who'd once jumped into the Pearl River without hesitation to save his life, was pale as a ghost and reduced to a shaking, screaming mess. Frozen in fear, the two men watched in horror as 3 strange creatures with pale, wrinkled skin glided out of the craft. They were about 5 feet tall with bullet-shaped heads, small slits where their mouths should have been, and pointy protrusions like carrots in place of noses and ears. Their arms were a bit longer than a human's, ending in pincers, and their legs were fused, pedestal-like, with round, toeless feet like those of an elephant. And I'm going to go find that photo again, because holy crap. So there's a photo with this, right? Okay. And in the background, I'm going to post this to social media too if I haven't already. But for those listening, in the background is like kind of a football-shaped craft, which is very interesting, having just done the Dexter UFO sightings, with like 2 windows kind of off to one end of it, so it kind of looks like it's got eyes and it's kind of looking to the left. In the foreground are Hickson and Parker with their poles, presumably completely frozen. In the middle ground are these, what look to be way more than 5 feet tall, I will say. They are humanoid in shape in that they have a torso, a head, 2 really long arms, and 2 legs. They have got what look to be like slug antennas sticking out from the tops of their heads, kind of situated just off to the side, like where you might wear horns. And their skin is, you guys ever had shawarma or a gyro? And while they're making it, you can kind of see it on the rotating rack. In fact, I'm pretty sure that shawarma and gyro all kind of mean the same thing, which is like rotation. And there's that just big slab of meat that they slice off of. These guys look like sentient shawarma on the spit. And I know it said that they were pale, right? So it's like pale, it's like uncooked sentient shawarma. It's real weird, guys. I wonder how they taste. Is this going to be a poplar situation? 2 creatures floated behind Hickson, emitting a buzzing sound. They grabbed him and lifted him off the ground with terrifying ease. A third approached Parker, grabbing his arm, causing him to lose consciousness instantly. Both men were taken inside the craft into different rooms. Hickson, who stayed fully conscious throughout the ordeal, later described the interior as overwhelmingly bright, so much so that he couldn't make out any details. He also noted that he couldn't close his eyes, as if some unseen force prevented him from doing so. Having read stories of people in his predicament, which I really need to know more about, Jeff. What? So he was already like a UFO enthusiast? I wish to know more. He began to fear being taken away, leaving authorities to assume he and Parker had drowned. Feeling paralyzed and weightless, Hickson was shifted into different positions, First vertical, then 45-degree angle, and back to vertical again. All of a sudden, a round object roughly the size of a football with an attachment to it popped out of the wall and hovered just inches from his face. Hickson tried to shut his eyes again, but to no avail. The object stayed there for a moment before slowly circling him, making him feel like it was scanning his body. The whole thing was painless. Afterward, the object went back into the wall, leaving Hickson alone in the room for what felt like an eternity. Did anyone else imagine the eyeball from like Return of the Jedi that's like the security system? That's like the ring camera for Jabba the Hutt's palace. Plus like a mixture of the like medical droid floaty guy from A New Hope that pokes Leia with the needle. Anyone? Is that just me? Cool. When the beings finally returned, he tried to plead for his release, but no words would come out of his mouth. Certain he was about to be killed, he braced himself for what he thought was his final moment. Instead, they carried him back to the spot where he and Parker had been taken. As soon as he was released, Hickson's legs gave out and he crumpled to the ground. He looked up and saw Parker nearby, facing the river, his arms stretched out as if reaching for something. He was frozen in fear, tears streaming down his face, his eyes wide with pure terror. Hickson began crawling toward his friend to check on him when, out of nowhere, he heard that eerie hissing sound again. He looked around and saw the door had already closed and the strange creatures were gone. As the craft lifted off and disappeared quickly into the night, Hickson heard a voice in his head. "We are peaceful. We meant you no harm." The fuck you... I mean, except for emotional and mental trauma. Congrats on your PTSD. We apparently totally meant that. According to Hickson, at this moment, Parker then fell to the ground, screaming in a state of shock. Once Hickson was able to calm his young friend, the two men sat by the river, stunned and unsure what to do next. After a brief moment of silence, they began debating whether to contact the authorities. In Parker's book, he recalls that he and Hickson agreed the experience was too personal and too unbelievable, so it was best to keep it to themselves. However, in Hickson's book, the scene unfolds differently, with him convincing his young friend that this could have been the beginning of an alien invasion, and it was their patriotic duty to inform the proper authorities. Again, was Hickson a UFO enthusiast long before this? I want to know what his reading habits were. What books were in his house, or was he getting from the library? What you reading about, Hickson? They carried their fishing gear back to the car, and Parker noticed that the passenger side windows were cracked. Shit! When Hickson opened the door, the glass shattered into pieces. Parker tried to start the car, but it wouldn't turn over, which was odd to Parker because it was a brand new car and he'd never had any trouble with it. Oh man, they ruined your Hornet, dude. Your bright yellow Hornet. Rude. After a few attempts, it finally started, but it sounded rough. Oddly, none of the people who investigated the case ever seemed interested in examining the car, supposedly damaged by an alien craft. No pictures of the car were ever taken by the Jackson County Police or the investigators who later took over the case. And that makes me super angry because that car could have a shit ton of evidence with it. And the car being damaged in itself is evidence that something happened. I don't know what. Nobody may know what. But at least it would be like evidence that these men went through some shit. Why didn't they examine the car? They're always bad. They always suck. Police never investigate the best parts of something. The two friends pulled into a 7-Eleven and sat in silence, trying to process what had just happened and figure out their next move. Hickson pulled the bottle of whiskey he purchased in case of emergency from under the seat and took 3 quick swigs to calm his nerves before telling Parker to take them home. Yeah. What forethought you had, Hickson? That was a really smart idea, actually. Maybe too smart. I actually have no idea. On the way, Hickson changed his mind and made Parker stop at the Mississippi Press Building so he could go inside and check the time, as he later told the police that neither of them had a watch, a detail that doesn't line up with his own book or Parker's account, both of which say Parker was wearing his watch that day and left it in the car before they were fishing. Okay, but I can totally see experiencing something deeply, deeply traumatic and completely forgetting that you even owned a watch, much less that you had it with you and that it was in the car. And who's to say that in that weird encounter that the watch either didn't get jostled somewhere because, I mean, the car is broken, or that in that weird like EMP infrasound thing, it didn't just get completely annihilated or broken or cracked or something. Like, that seems fine. I lose shit all the time. My glasses are now on a chain around my neck because I lose them so much. So I really get it. I don't know that that's a sign of hoax or a sign of falsehood, but I guess we'll find out. Hickson came out of the building about 2 minutes later, shrugged, and said, "I don't know, there's no clock in there." Which is really fucking weird for a press building. They're kind of time-based people. Later, he would tell the police that he'd gone inside to speak with a reporter, but was told by an employee that no one was available until morning. That same employee, interviewed a few days after the incident, remembered Hickson being unusually calm considering what he'd supposedly just been through. Yeah, shock is a hell of a drug. I don't know. I know. I need to save all my judgments for last, but at the moment I can find relatively easy ways to explain their actions and their forgetfulness, right? Weird that he would want to go to a reporter first and not just straight to the cops. Or like sleep on it or something, They finally stopped at a local hangout called Tick, or Tik. It's in all caps, so it could be either one. Parker ordered a beer while Hickson used a payphone to call the Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, about 30 minutes west. When he finally got through, Hickson was told that the USAF had stopped investigating UFOs in 1969 and was no longer handling UFO reports. Thank you very much. Yeah, you kind of were though, buddy. 1973? You were still doing some UFO things. Don't lie. Come on, don't lie. They advised him to contact local authorities instead. Around 8 p.m., Hickson finally called the Jackson County Sheriff's Office to report the incident. In Parker's version of the events, he and Hickson were told to wait in the car until officers arrived, were given a sobriety test, and then taken by patrol car to the police station. In Parker's version of the events, he and Hickson were told to wait in the car until officers arrived, were given a sobriety test, and then were told to follow the police car to the station. Hickson's version is less detailed. He doesn't say where he made the call and skips straight to their arrival at the station. Deputy Glenn Ryder remembers it differently, saying Hickson made the call from a 7-Eleven and picked them up from Hickson's apartment. Oh no. Oh, those are all different. Uh-oh. Ooh, unsure who to believe. That's wild. Parker's and Ryder's stories are absolutely completely different. But there should be a maybe there's not a record of the sobriety test. Maybe they don't have to record that if it's not like bad. Hickson doesn't say where he made the call and skips straight to the arrival at the station. So Hickson did not feel that part was in any way important, but Ryder and Parker kind of do. Interesting. Okay. Who knows? At the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, the two men were questioned separately for several hours by Sheriff Fred Diamond. Oh my God. These names are incredible. And Deputy Glenn Ryder. Hickson did most of the talking, repeatedly emphasizing that they didn't want the story to get out or attract media attention. Got it? Meanwhile, Parker stayed mostly quiet and distant. After hearing Hickson recount the story twice, Diamond and Ryder decided to secretly record them. They turned on a hidden tape recorder and asked an exasperated Hickson to tell the story again. After separate questioning, Parker was brought in with Hickson. The deputies stepped out under the pretense of getting coffee, but left the recorder running to test their credibility. The resulting audio, referred to as the secret tape, is considered by many to be irrefutable proof of the story's authenticity. Throughout the recording, there's no hint of a hoax. They don't break character. They genuinely sound like two guys trying to make sense of a fucking weird experience. I am going to paste the audio here. I apologize if it is somewhat unintelligible. I cleaned it up as best I could, but the audio is too old and has frankly been reposted by other folks way too many times, and there are going to be some unintelligible parts. However, included in the show notes to this episode is the entire transcript to that audio. So if you want, you can read along, you can listen by itself, or you can just skip this part entirely. It's like 3 minutes or so, and read the show notes later. Whatever you like.
Something like that is scary. You slowing down to death, you know? Jesus Christ. You hear about something like that, but you can't believe it. Yeah, yes, I know, Cal, I know. There ain't something the United States have up there. No, it's look at it. That wasn't done, though. Not what we seen, though. Not what we seen. It's something, and the Air Force and all know it's up there, too, see. And this ain't gonna be the only time this gonna happen again. And until they... Hey, this shit's I like had a heart attack tonight, ain't she? Well, I know. Someone down in you. That scared me to death, too, something. I'm just down there crying right now. I can't tell you so, but... It's something that you can't get over in a lifetime, see. Jesus Christ. Most of them bad about it, bad flavors. That's what I thought. I had been through enough of hell on this earth, and now I have to go through something like this. But they could have, I guess they could have harmed us, son. They had us, they could have done anything to us if they didn't hurt me. Maybe why they just picked us up? I don't know. I'm telling you, man, I couldn't take much more of that. I just tell you, I know I'm going to bed and get some nerve pills or something, some doctor or something. I can't stand it. I'm about to go all the pain. I'll tell you about it when they get through us. We'll go by the burn. I'll get you something to settle you down with so you get some damn sleep. I can sleep tonight like it like that. I'm just laying there crazy. But yeah, when they brought you out of that damn thing, and when they brought me out, well, I like to know when the hell, God damn, I like to know when the hell got you straightened out, man. But in Lawrence, I remember Lawrence, they just froze out just like that. I couldn't do it, just like a step on a damn ladder. They didn't do me that way, though. I passed out. That's the first time I ever passed out in my life. And shut the new medical records. And I've never seen them like that before in my life. It's hard. You can't make people believe that, though. I don't know. I'm sitting here and believe it not, because I know. They better wake up and start believing. They better wake up and start believing. Listen, I've seen it. I can't figure out the damn door. You see how that door will come around on that side of the chair? Yeah, I don't know how to open, son. I don't know. I didn't see no door swing up. I don't know how to open. I don't know how to shit on it. All right, you see something. You look around and them damn blue lights and them some bitches are just like that. They come out. Yeah, no, you can't believe it. You can't make people believe it. I paralyzed right there. I couldn't believe it. They won't believe it one of these days. They won't believe it one of these days. Might be too late. But I knew all along they was people from out of the world up there. I knew all along. I never thought it would happen to me. You know yourself, I don't brag. I know that. I know that. And you got accused of being on that boat and everything else, but I know one. Very little now, drink. I drank some while ago when I got out of that damn thing to settle my damn nerves. Hey, that's because I took anything, right? I told you one. And I'll probably take me a couple of drinks when I get to the house and make me sleep. You something. If I thought it had my nerves, I'd go grab something right now. When I get to the house, I'm going to get me another drink. It would make me sleep. I can't. There's something I want to do for you. What are we waiting on? I gotta go tell Blaine something. Why did it say we had to wait? I better go to the house. I don't sit here and get sick down the street. I'm getting sick right here. I ain't shit. I better go to the house. Wait a minute, let me go talk. Actually, there's somebody else.
The deputies secretly collected the tape and listened to it in another room. By that point, Hickson and Parker were visibly exhausted, but Sheriff Diamond wasn't done with them quite yet. He questioned the men for a couple more hours. What the hell else do you need to know? This isn't a fucking murder. God damn, these poor guys. Before finally letting them go in the early hours of the morning. Before leaving, Parker begged him to not make the story public. Diamond gave him his word. The two men drove home in silence. They went straight to bed as soon as they arrived, but neither of them could get any sleep. That night was the first of many sleepless nights to come for the two seasoned fishermen. According to Hickson's wife, from this night on, he was never the same. She said he suffered from cold sweats so badly that sometimes she had to change the sheets 2 or 3 times a night. I don't even own that many sheets. This, wouldn't even be possible in my house. The catch of the day. The next morning, Parker woke up hyperfixated on the fear that the aliens might have contaminated him. He became convinced his clothes from the night before carried some kind of alien bacteria, so he threw them away. In a panic, he poured bleach all over his body. Oh my God, don't do that. Don't do that. Do not listen to, trad wives on the internet. Oh my God, don't do that. And rinsed it off in the shower. Hopefully, fucking immediately. After breakfast, still visibly shaken and exhausted, the two men headed to work. On the way, Parker voiced his concerns about possible space viruses to Hickson. Who reassured him that he would take care of everything. What does that mean? What do you mean take care of everything? What do you mean? How would you take care of space viruses? Charles Hickson, what are you talking about? How would you take care of space viruses? Okay. That's not a weird thing to say at all. That's fine. However, at work, Hickson reportedly spilled his coffee and cried in front of coworkers, which is like a daily thing for me. So, welcome to my world. When asked what was bothering him, Hickson reluctantly opened up about the incident. The two men were taken to the front office where they had to repeat the story to the manager and James Flint, F-L-Y-N-T. God damn. These names are so cool. The superintendent. Flint sketched the aliens under their directions. Interestingly, the drawing didn't fully match the description they gave at the police station. Instead of 2 fused legs shaped like an elephant's foot, the sketch shows 2 distinct normal legs, I'm assuming with joints and stuff, and even eyes. The two later explained the discrepancy by saying the creatures were so wrinkled it was difficult to tell whether they had eyes or not. And, I'll be honest, human memory is a very, very faulty and fickle thing. And we are terrible eyewitnesses to everything. Eyewitness accounts should not be taken with as much seriousness as they are. Our brains are bad at details. And our brains love making stuff up. And sometimes the two of those combine. And you might remember something very distinctly as a very real thing in your life. And it could be mostly made up. It's great. Thanks, human brains. Then the phones began ringing. The story had leaked. Reporters from all over the country were trying to reach the men who claimed they'd been abducted by spacemen. Chaos ensued. Media crews swarmed the shipyard and the police station like vultures, all desperate for the scoop. Hickson and Parker gave Flint's sketch to the Mississippi Press, but the paper went with the drawing of a mosquito-like alien drawn by an Atlanta artist when they ran the story instead. Why? That is wonderfully frustrating. Were you going to have to pay Flint for his drawing? Didn't you have to pay the Atlanta artist too? What is the difference here? Just post the actual drawing of the closest thing that we have to what it actually looked like. I'll try to find that mosquito drawing too. I'm sure it's somewhere in the show notes. Jeff is a very thorough person, but I don't want to lose my spot. This script is like 25 pages or something. It's long, guys. Diamond arrived with a couple of deputies to help manage the media frenzy. Parker watched as Hickson confronted him, accusing him of leaking the story. Diamond adamantly denied it, insisting he had nothing to do with it. The two men returned to the station for further questioning. Hickson voiced his concerns that they may have been exposed to radiation aboard the craft. After a series of phone calls, Deputy Tom Huntley arranged for them to undergo radiation testing at Keesler Air Force Base. The results came back negative. No unusual findings, no lesions, nothing out of the ordinary, just a few scratches on Parker's arms. Following the tests, Hickson and Parker were taken to a room where they were questioned by intelligence. During the interrogation, Hickson and Parker revealed that not long before their encounter, they had witnessed a UFO sighting in Gautier, where they, along with dozens of other witnesses, observed a glowing red ball of light in the sky one night. What? So, in that case, Hickson, yes, has definitely had previous experience and knowledge of UFOs. Additionally, it was also revealed that two independent witnesses had reported seeing strange blue lights in the sky on the night of the incident, corroborating their story, and the blue light that Parker saw, right? Hickson maintained that no harm was done to him, while Parker claimed he blacked out and had no memory of what happened to him inside the craft. By the end of the day, Hickson and Parker's story had spread faster than Jinkos in a 90s middle school and made headlines across the country. Beautiful. I think they made a comeback too. The 90s are alive and well again, at least here in the Midwest. The Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, APRO, a UFO research group based in Tucson, Arizona, quickly sent their director of research, James Harder. No. That's right. I remember now. Mr. Harder. Harder. I am 12. I am going to giggle at that every time I say it. They sent Director of Research James Harder to interview Hickson and Parker. Harder, stop, Jeff, you're doing this to me on purpose now. Harder, a staunch UFO believer, had a PhD in engineering and taught civil and hydraulic engineering at the University of California, Berkeley. Harder, stop. Jeff. Harder was soon joined by none other than the father of ufology himself, Joseph Allen Hynek, also an astronomer, professor, former scientific advisor to the U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book, and founder of the Center for UFO Studies, CUFOS. For the uninitiated, except now you all should be, now that you listened to my Dexter UFO sightings episode, you might recognize him as the pipe-smoking guy in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, who kind of looks like Colonel Sanders if he was a sex therapist. You're not wrong. You're so not wrong. That is exactly, just put that man in a turtleneck, and that is just exactly what you have. Oh, UFO Daddy Hynek. We'll be talking about him much more in depth later on in this season. Harder and Hynek, I'm gonna die. This is insane. I'm 12. Harder and Hynek met with the two men on the morning of October 13th, so just a couple days after the experience. This is all happening super fast. Accompanied by Deputy Barney Mattis, sorry that you didn't get a cool name, Officer Thomas Hunley, you either, and Joe Colingo, nope, that's dope, the shipyard's lawyer, whom Hickson would later hire to basically become their agent and handle their TV appearances and commercial deals. They got commercial deals? Wait, what? Hickson and Parker would get commercial deals later? That's crazy. Hey guys, we got abducted by a UFO. Buy this beer. It is the only thing that kept me sane afterward. While the idea of a shipyard foreman and a welder needing an agent might sound ridiculous, as I just laughed about, Colingo was reportedly getting hundreds of calls a day from reporters from around the world. He even assured Hickson and Parker that their story would make them millionaires, calling it bigger than Watergate. No. Oh, no, honey. No. No, 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 no. I don't know if you know this, Colingo, but Watergate was like really influential into the US government. And these guys, while they experienced deep personal trauma and PTSD, we are not going to argue that, got abducted by aliens. This is not the same. Sir, this is not the same. Harder, who wasn't a trained clinician, surprise, surprise, later convinced the two men to undergo hypnosis, and conducted 2 sessions with them over 2 days. No. Okay. Hypnosis, even when done by, like, someone trained and a doctor and all of that wonderful, credentialed things, still not super great when you're trying to recall alien abduction. This could really fuck somebody up. This might really fuck them up. Okay. The sessions didn't reveal anything new. Hickson stuck to his original account of the encounter, while Parker continued to insist he didn't remember anything, but interestingly described the beings looking like ghosts. Are we mixing our phenomena here? That would be awesome. Harder, who wasn't a licensed doctor, surprise, surprise, conducted a physical examination on them. In his report, he claimed to have found marks on their bodies resembling puncture marks. I am pretty sure if the actual doctors at the Air Force Base didn't find any puncture marks on them, that this dude, a day or 2 later, also did not find puncture marks on them. Interesting. After the meeting, Hickson and later Parker added this new detail to their story, claiming that the aliens had injected them with something. This was never mentioned during their initial police interviews or during testing at Keesler Air Force Base. Over time, Hickson's account grew more and more elaborate. He began adding that he felt a sharp pain in his shoulder when the creatures first grabbed him, contradicting previous statements that the entire experience had been painless. Harder went to the media, claiming that both he and Hynek were confident the men had experienced an extraterrestrial phenomenon. However, Harder put those words in Hynek's mouth. Oh my god. Insert joke about other things going in mouths here. In his book, The Edge of Reality, Hynek deplored the absence of a medical examination by an actual qualified doctor and criticized Harder's lack of formal training in psychology and psychiatry. He noted, quote, "I saw no evidence of a physical craft anywhere around, so I can't say whether it really happened. The men are not lying. I'm quite convinced of that," end quote. In the book, Hynek clearly states that he did not believe the incident was of extraterrestrial nature, but that the 2 men at least had a quote-unquote very frightening experience. It very much seems like it, too. That same day, the Tulsa Daily World ran a piece on the incident where Officer Mattis is quoted saying Hickson described the beings as having big eyes and said the whole encounter lasted about 20 minutes. That's the first, not quite the first, of several inconsistencies in the story. Amid the media frenzy, the Jackson County Sheriff's Department received hundreds of calls about UFO sightings, some corroborating Hickson and Parker's encounter. Sheriff Diamond even got in on the action, maybe with Harder. Kidding. He got in on the action, claiming he and a friend saw flickering blue lights in the sky 2 days after the incident. Okay, friends, we are going to stop there for today. We are about 50 minutes into the episode, and I still have 1, 2, 3. I got 12 pages to go. So we're going to pause there, and I will see you guys in just a couple weeks. If you would like to get on that social media train, Alien to Me only has an Instagram because that is just about the only social media I can stand to use these days, and even that is going downhill fast. However, Alien to Me is part of Haunted Mitten LLC, where you can find mine and Chris's podcast, Haunted Mitten, anywhere you get podcasts and on YouTube and things. Haunted Mitten has an Instagram, a Facebook, a Tumblr, which I am occasionally reblogging stuff on, and all of that fun stuff. Both podcasts have a website and a Patreon. So Alien to Me is going to be part of Haunted Mitten's Patreon for quite some time. I don't see any reason to split off at the moment. After all, we are one company. So through Haunted Mitten's Patreon, you get things like access to our awesome Discord, you get access to interviews, live shows, behind the scenes looks, discounts, sometimes giveaways, special prizes, book reviews, the newsletter, all that fun stuff, and episodes of Alien to Me a week early. And eventually when I can make the monies, no ads. It will be ad free. So if you would like to join, just look up the Haunted Mitten Patreon. The prices are from $1 to $5. We're not asking a lot. We know it's a tough world out there. We are all just doing our best. On that note, I still don't have a good sign off for this. Bye.